Welcome to the Money Maven Project podcast. If you're here to learn how to obtain freedom over your time and money through real estate investing, you're in the right place. Create the life you want by living with intention and becoming a maven in mindset, money, and real estate. Now, here's your host, Justin Monk.
Hey, this is Justin Monk with the Money Maven Project podcast. Super excited today. We have Chris Prefontaine on the podcast with us today. Welcome, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. I'm excited to dive in here.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. We're going to talk about some topics that I've been anxious to learn more about. Chris is a 3-time best-selling author of Real Estate on Your Own Terms, The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, and I may say this wrong, Moneeka Sawyer's Real Estate Investing for Women, right?
Yeah, Moneeka. That's good, though.
Moneeka,
you did a great job.
Close. He is the founder and CEO of Smart Real Estate Coach and the host of Smart Real Estate Coach podcast. And knowing you, from what I know, there's a lot more to that than just that short bio. But tell us your story, man. Where did you kind of start, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'll give some backdrop. We're a family company, so I think that's super important to know, culture-wise and otherwise. And we can dive into that. But so we buy and sell homes still every day. I think that's also super important because we're in the trenches. It's my son, my son-in-law, and a great team around us, just in our immediate area, Justin. So that would be Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Then because of that, we started getting asked, 2013, 14, can we help other people do that? It started with a local gentleman that was leaving. We have a war college here. He was leaving the area and going back to civilian life and wanted to learn. He literally was the first guy that reached out to us. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward a few years, we've got what we call associates, students, all across North America doing deals. We don't believe in just selling something because there's a lot of, too bad, but there's a lot of crap out there.
Yeah.
And so we are big on, our mission is all about doing deals. So we actually partner, rev share, and do deals in the trenches with students. So they're getting stuff done.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's just a big differentiator. We have this thing called Bridge the Gap. The gap between when someone goes to a course or a seminar to when they do a deal, and you and I kind of lightly talk before the recording. A lot of times they don't get out of that, and it's sad. So we're on a mission to do deals with them, and so that's what we do. Especially with COVID happening, it's super important that your fingers on the pulse, and frankly, that you've been through some. I've been through 3 or 4 cycles, right? So it's a lot of learning lessons there.
That's awesome. And so, how long have you been doing this?
Okay, I'm going to date myself, but I've been at this in some shape, form, or fashion since '91 when my dad sold a family company. It had nothing to do with real estate, and I went off and started building homes, and he went into a different company.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. The reason I asked that is because, not to date you, but there's a lot of courses out there, a lot of gurus that yes, maybe they've been super successful over the past 2 or 3 years doing whatever model they're doing, but very few of them have been, like you said, through several cycles. Like you have been through the ups and downs of real estate in the single family stuff for a long time, which is very cool. And so I think that's a very good thing for our listeners to understand.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and here's why. I said to you just in our brief chat that we sing the same tune because success is a real crappy teacher. It just is. I don't care how you twist it. I don't care if you're building a restaurant or whatever you're doing. It's not a good teacher. So the best teacher is being able to be adaptable is going to show you the path, but how do you get adaptable? You hang out with experience. Like a good teacher is someone that's been through a bunch of that. So on our end, I've weathered 9/11 and COVID, my son's accident, going into a coma, 3 market cycles. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I got some lumps in there, but that led us to, in hindsight, where we are today, starting in like 2013, post-crash, to what we do, which is buying and selling on terms.
Yeah. Tons of questions I have kind of on my list here, but one that I just barely thought of, and I think it's one that I don't usually have the opportunity to talk to because not everybody's running a family business like you are. And I think that's super cool because there are people out there that say that it can't be done, like that's going to put too much pressure, some wedges in between family members. What's your secret to success in running a family business? Because I've actually been through, or I was in one, I'm currently in another one outside of real estate, but family businesses, and it can be difficult sometimes. So what's the secret?
I agree. I will lean on a company that's called the Lead Entrepreneurs. I will literally give them 90-something% of the credit for what we've established, and that is a culture and a set of values to run on. Then I'll talk about kind of personal stuff, but values meaning when a decision's made, I don't care if it's a family member in the room or someone else, right? It's important that the decisions are made on the values of the company, based on the values, because it's not it's an opinion because you want communication, but it's based on those values. We even accept students, believe it or not, based on these values. We've said no to a lot of money in 2019 and 20 because it didn't fit the community.
Yeah.
Now, most coaches would say, "What are you, crazy? Like, just sell them?" No, we just don't. It's not worth it. So that goes the same with the family team. And then just to illustrate, I'll give you a quick story. So we have a simple rule: don't bring negative home. If there's positive, fine, but when we're home, we're home. So we're a close family, we're always together. So much so like about 4 years ago, we were living within a block of each other. Mm-hmm. And the office was a block away. And my son would get home in his driveway, I'd get home in my driveway next door and he'd say, "Hey, how was your day today?" Yeah. Just kidding. And we keep it separate. And so you have fun with it and you live by the values, and literally there's no qualms that way.
Yeah, wow. that can keep the emotion out of it, right? The decisions are made based on what already pre-agreed upon values and decision-making processes.
Right.
That's crucial. I mean, and I'm sure that it's also a little bit dependent on having good family members, good team members that can handle that situation and those sometimes the stresses for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's good, and I appreciate you answering that question because I don't think I haven't interviewed very many people that are in that situation that can answer that question with some experience. So that's cool. Good. So tell us more. Your focus right now is single family stuff, right? And the lease option. And what else is kind of are you focused on? Where are you headed right now?
Okay, so we do focus on single family as a whole because people won't stop getting married and buying homes and upgrading. So that's our as a whole. But when you're in the trenches doing deals, Justin, as you know, other deals come. Like I'm at my home office now at this hour, and with COVID, but we have an office building. We did it on terms, owner financing. It's one of our buying methods. Owner financing, no banks, and so that we practice what we preach. So one method is owner financing. One is lease purchase. In all states but Texas, we'll do sandwich leases, and then subject to existing financing. Those are the only three ways we'll buy, and that was as a result of taking the lumps in the 2008 crash, signing personally on loans, which I tell people do not ever do. It's not worth it. So we control 50 or 60 properties at any one time. The community controls about 80 million altogether, all of our students and us. And not one single property out of that 80 million has anyone signed on any loans whatsoever. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. So those are three methods we buy. The owner financing method, just a sub niche, then we can go into any one of them. The owner financing niche, we focus on free and clear. And so that allows us to talk to the owner, and if the property's free and clear, then we will structure monthly principal only payments on those free and clear homes. So we don't mind paying the price as long as we get a long enough term. Why? Because it's all principal getting paid down and hammered down every month. So that's one of our favorite. And then the lease purchase that you and I talked about before the show is neat only because as a new investor, it's great because there's no deed transfer. There's no large deposits. None of these are. There's $10 deposit built into our agreement. And so it's very little. I'll never say no risk, right? But there's very, very little risk. You mitigate your risk and you set yourself up to be sort of recession resistant.
Yeah, I like that. So tell us, giving us an example deal of a lease purchase and how that kind of flows. And because you talk a lot about in the book about 3 paydays, right? Where you're making money. Let's give the listeners an example of one of those deals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up 3 paydays because most shows I forget to bring it up unless said. So we are in the midst of, I think it's pending. It might be done by trademarking that because it's a cool system. So I'll outline a typical deal using round numbers, as if you were my seller. Okay. These come to us many different ways, like expired listings for sale by owners. So let's just give a basic deal that you're the seller and you have some equity because sometimes there's not. Mm-hmm. Let's say the house is worth $300,000. You and I agree. You were perhaps an expired listing. You didn't sell in the open market. Could have been COVID. Could have been functionality. Doesn't matter. You were an expired listing. You owe $250. Let's give you some equity. So all the lease purchase says is, okay, Justin, provided you don't need your equity out, you just expired, you didn't sell with a realtor, provided you don't need your equity out today to go do something else with your family, you can wait. And primarily you can wait because you know you'll get a little more with us. Then what we do is we say this. We say, okay, contingent upon us putting our buyer in your home, we'll talk about the buyers in a minute, contingent upon that happening so we don't take anything on, we won't spend anything too soon, we're going to go ahead and agree to pay your monthly mortgage on the underlying $250. We're going to take over all maintenance and repair responsibility. We're going to pass that to our buyer. And at the end of the term or before, we're going to pay that off. That $250 is going to be lower at that time. That's one of the paydays I'll get to. And we're going to give you your $50,000. So pay off your existing loan, pay your $50,000. That's it. Very simple. On or before the end of the term. Let's call it 36 months. So we go out, we find the tenant buyer. A tenant buyer is defined to us as someone that just needs time, especially with COVID. They might need to save more reserves, save more down payment. They might need to repair credit. They might have a job transfer and need seasoning. There's a lot of people, like I'm talking like 80% of the market in some areas right now. They can't walk into a bank and get a loan. It's enormous. And a lot of our associates and our family team is really big on, okay, who are we helping? We're helping a whole bunch of people right now, especially with COVID, but even before. So that's who we put in the homes. And why do I bring that up, even though we're talking about the seller side at the same time? Because, and we'll hit 3 paydays, because these buyers are truly buyers that need time versus a lot of mentors that will teach, just put a renter in there. If they can't afford to buy, just do it again and collect another deposit. Morally and ethically, that stinks. So we have a very strict policy. You're a buyer. You just can't legitimately get there yet. And so we're going to treat you like a buyer. You're going to pay for your maintenance and repairs like a buyer. Everything's going to be the same. And when we get you to the finish line, you'll cash everybody out. Versus a renter that's saying, well, I'd like to buy someday, maybe, and they don't have it. They just can't get there. They don't have a plan. So we give them a mortgage ready plan, we call it, to get them cashed out. We set them up to win, basically.
Yeah, I love that. So the exit. So you get that buyer in there, and at some point during that 36-month term, they're finishing the purchase, right?
Yeah. So let's hit the 3 paydays to that point. So payday 1, the buyer has a down payment. It's non-refundable. I will tell you as recent as today, on one of our mastermind calls, we had a student say, "Yep, another high-end home in his area. A buyer went to the closing table." Now this is more COVID driven, and the lender changed their criteria and said you need 2 years reserves. This person had like 7-something credit. I think it was like 770, 780.
Yeah.
Because it was a jumbo, they got flushed out of that closing. They came to him for the same house, and they're cutting a deal because it has to be done on terms and need time. So payday 1, non-refundable down payment. Payday 2, difference between, let's go back to the deal with you, $250,000 loan. Let's say it's $1,500, probably high, but I'm going to be paying your underlying mortgage directly to your bank, and from my tenant buyer, I'm going to collect plus whatever plus. So say it's $1,800. So I'm going to collect $300 a month spread every month, every house, net spread. That's payday 2. Payday 3 is very lucrative and very interesting. Payday 3 is, I tied your house up for $300. I probably sold it for $319. Depends what the comps allow me to do. But let's say modestly $319. So I got $20,000 there. But as the months click by, I'm getting the benefit of all your principal pay down, because remember what I said, I'm going to give you your $50,000 and pay off your loan. Your loan into over time is no longer $250. It's lower. So payday 3 is nice and juicy all the time.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so intriguing to me. So it seems like where's the risk for people? It seems like we've mitigated that. It's almost like, I don't want to call it wholesaling, but I mean, we're tying up a property and we're finding a buyer for it, but it's a little bit cleaner and a little bit less risk, I think. Tell me how that compares, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk about some speed bumps. So, because we've certainly had them in 8 years of doing terms, or 7.5 years. You are right. It is mitigated dramatically. You didn't take title. Your agreement, if you're using ours, your agreement brilliantly is written so that you can assign the house back to the seller if it comes to the point where you can't agree on either an extension or going further or something happened.
Or you can't find a buyer, right?
Well, if you can't find a buyer, it's an easy one. Yeah, it's written right in. There is no agreement. Yeah. So, but once you go forward, look, life happens, right? We have about a 95%. That's the inverse relationship to most people teaching this. about a 95% success rate on buyers. What's the 5%? Like, how come they fall out even though we're really dotting the I's and crossing the T's? Well, besides COVID, life happens. The longer the terms are, it leaves time for divorce, job loss, transfers, whatever. Stuff happens. So we do have some fallout percent. So if that happens during the term, there's all kinds of ways to pivot, but you also have a safety net in your agreement as well, using our agreements.
So what's the ideal property that this works for? Is there what's your criteria in looking for properties? That it sounded like, I mean, some of these you're finding just like any investor is finding. You're finding them expired listings, people that need to get out quickly. But so tell me more about what your ideal property is.
Okay, from an ideal property, it would be the sweet spot in your market, so the median price range. The properties are going to move in any market, even though you're not selling conventionally and you have a much larger buyer pool. I still want that sweet spot. So in our market, it might be like 190 to 590 in Rhode Island. In DC, for our student builder, it might be like 700 to 1.1. It's just the market's higher for him. So the reason that's neat is we're always looking for properties that are finished, kind of good-looking properties, Justin, like move-in properties. Now, there's probably 5 more episodes we could do on what if it needs work, and we don't spend money, so we still sell it as is, but most of our properties are move-in shape.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, because most investors we're shopping, if you're doing the Burr method or you're flipping, you're wholesaling, you're looking for a distressed property, not just a distressed owner. So a little bit different there.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many calls, especially when I was doing a ton more calls for our own properties. Now my son and son-in-law do them, but they'd say, well, I know you just want to, lowball me. They're almost afraid of investors. And when we say, no, we're not a realtor, and no, we're not looking to lowball, we want to pay market price as long as you have time. And of course, there's scripts. The wall, you feel it come down on the phone.
Yeah.
There's very little competition. And so right now, I mean, people are flooding this market right now, this niche, because of COVID, and it's working quite well. But still, there's hardly any competition.
It seems like, and I don't know, maybe it's just my perception, but it's definitely, I mean, I've read, as you can tell, I've read a lot of books, and I've been doing it a couple years now with my own investing, and I'm just starting to hear a couple of people start to talk about their coaching programs and that they've been doing this, and I'm super intrigued. I think, like you say, there's definitely opportunity to 3 paydays, but you're also helping buyers. They maybe they're 1099 or whatever. They need 2 years of income records, whatever it is. You're helping people get into homes, which is super cool.
Yep. No, you said it right. It's the healthiest relationship. My son was licensed when he joined me in 2014 fall, and his exact words were, "Dad, this is so healthy because you're not." And I have nothing against agents. I was one for 18 years, but you don't have agents arguing. You don't have bickering over home inspection. You don't, because the seller's ecstatic. You got them there. The buyer's ecstatic. They lost hope. They thought they couldn't buy, and you win as an investor. You can't get a better relationship than that when everybody's winning. The environment, the energy is great.
Yeah. So if somebody is trying to get into this method, what's your first direction? I mean, I know there's tons of answers here, and it's more complicated than that. But where would they start looking? They just go to the MLS and start looking for a property, or what would your first direction be? Okay, so are you saying kind of post training, like you're ready to go? Yeah, sure. Or pre-training? Let's say they know the basics. Yeah. So post training. Okay. Yeah. We have virtual assistants that will use our account that we set up with a company called MyPlus. They'll provide us for rent by owner, for sale by owner, and expires. We have the portal with all those on there that get downloaded daily. Our VA will go in there, virtual assistant, and they're trained to call these, and they'll call them. The ones that they get a yes, or maybe they're kind of lukewarm, they're open to someone calling, that's the batch we'll call. So we're not wasting time. We're calling people that primarily want to talk to us. And you're going to get 30 to, one of our students today told me 54% of his calls were converting to leads. That's high. I usually say a third to 50%. Wow. Yeah. So the VAs are calling expired listings, for sale by owner, and what was the other one you mentioned? For rent by owner. For rent, okay. Yeah, you got a lot of frustrated people in that batch right about now. There's a few people ready to dump that property. Yeah. And I love that because, like you said, that we're not It doesn't have to sell for a discount, right?
No.
I mean, I do a lot of the Burr method. So I'm shopping for, I've got to buy at a discount because I need room for the rehab and I need room for the cash out refinance at 70% ARV. Like I have to buy at a discount. So this is cool because it doesn't have to be a distressed property. The homeowner is felt like they're getting a deal and getting their money, you know, what the price that they want. And like the only contingency is that they need to have time, right? So they can't be in a hurry to pull out. So give us you quickly mentioned a few of these, but give us a couple of scenarios, examples of people that may not need that equity right away and they have some time.
Yeah, and I'll even give you the script. My opening script is, Justin, if I can get you to your price, are you able to do it on a lease purchase or owner financing? And they say, what does it mean? I say, well, first, before I explain it, can you wait for your equity, or do you need to use whatever equity? I didn't even get to their equity yet, but if you have equity in your property, do you need it? So who are some people that we see? Everyone except the family that has to go buy and they need every penny from this house. There's all kinds of scenarios on the opposite end of that. My office building, I'll use that example again. He's a gentleman that does real estate, has one of the larger landholders. You see his signs everywhere. Why did he sell it on owner financing? He didn't want it cashed out. It was a tax planning issue, a estate planning issue. And so we didn't have to go to the bank and do the 35% down and do the credit check and the microscope check on you. You know, they do everything with these underwriters now. So we didn't have to do any of that. So he was a prime person for a nice, free and clear property. Other people, they're doing right now, especially, they might have a second home and somebody lost a job, so they can't afford necessarily the second home, but they're okay. And they got to get rid of that. So it's more debt relief. They just want the payment covered. They don't need the equity out. They want that covered. And frankly, most of them are afraid. They don't know. They listen to the media. If you listen to the media, you'll sell everything and run. So they want to get rid of that payment right now and try to lock in some equity. There's most people right now, except for someone that needs to go buy a house.
That's awesome. And one thing that you mentioned just briefly again, and I want to circle back to it, I haven't heard you mention having to get appraisals, right? Having to deal with that and it's funny, that's fresh on my mind because I just lost a deal. I was doing I was purchasing a home at a discount, distressed property, using hard money. Well, this appraiser came in $20,000 lower than what all the comps are that we can provide for him.
Yeah.
And the hard money lender, he's like, well, I'm not going to argue with my appraiser guy. So this deal's done. And I'm like, well, that's wrong. And so here I am arguing with an appraiser. And so in your method, in the lease method, you're not having to depend on that.
No. So there are some good, so let's go 2 levels here, us and the buyers. On our side, there are some good, as you know, some software programs. You can pull your own comps. I mean, I'm comfortable with that after 31 years, but we teach our students the different platforms that they can go to comp it out. Now, does it matter that much? No. Why? Because we're going to turn around from the market to a tenant buyer that needs time. We're not doing it unless they enter the agreement with us, the buyer. Okay, so then the buyer gets in there. The buyer's we have is not contingent upon it at all, ever. It is, they are treated like a buyer. So if you bought a house today, Justin, for yourself, whatever the market does after that, you bought a house. You sit through it. The market goes up or down, you own it. Yeah. We tell the tenant buyers, you're a buyer. You don't have a deed yet, but we are treating you like a buyer. So you're buying this house today. You're putting it on an agreement today. You just don't have a mortgage yet. If at the end the appraisal is lower, we'll either renegotiate or we'll extend for you. But it's your house. You're controlling it. So I never get caught up with the appraisers except for our payday 3 cash out. Yeah. In case something crazy happened, then okay, it's a real estate deal. You have to renegotiate. It's rare, but you could. Here's why it's rare. Take my office again, or any one of these deals we've been working on. We have one on the ocean front in Cape Cod. We just extended that deal again, year-wise, term-wise. I don't care if the market does up, down, sideways. If you have a 10-year term on something, do you really lose sleep over if the market goes down tomorrow because the election or up? It doesn't matter. But it does matter if you're flipping or doing new construction. I mean, did all that. So that keeps you up at night. You won't be up as much if you're doing terms deals.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what are some of the common, as you're explaining this to people, and what are some of the common concerns or objections that they have to this method that they need
Sellers?
to say it again?
Sellers, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, let's both do investors and sellers. I like that. I was
Got
asking more on the investor side. If somebody's,
Oh, okay.
oh, hey, this is a new method. You explain what you do to an investor that's currently doing flips, and they're like, well, hey, what about this? What are the common objections or concerns they have?
I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to give you a biased answer. I'll try to dig into the pessimist side, but most of the wholesales and flippers, like roomfuls, are seeking us out because of what it did during these storms. That's what it was built for. That's how we built it post crash. Now, I guess they could say things like the quick money with the flips, sure, but my combat to that is, and it's the truth, it's one paycheck. Mm-hmm. You got to go do another deal. When I was a realtor and I sold 100 homes a year, every January I'd bum out and go, oh, I got to do it again. Whereas if you put 3 paydays together, I told my group today, I said, do 18 of those. And see the 1-point-something million you now have on your books, and you have a scale of when it's going to pay out, counter of when it's going to pay out. That's pretty cool. So other objections might be time. So you could, I'm trying to even look for tougher things. So time. Our 3 paydays, you get one right away, you get one monthly, and you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So that one's a big one. And our average paydays, though, Justin, are $75,000. Our family team, some of our students are as high as $250,000, one deal, all 3 paydays. So they're quite high. And so we help them budget to live on the payday 1s and 2s and not get too caught up in those 3s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just like gravy. That's the wealth building, the 3.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Yeah, that's huge. So, and then the obstacles that the seller might have, what are their concerns when you're offering this option to them?
Yeah, that's easier for me to think about because there's many. Well, of course, time, right? I need the cash today. Now, there's a script for that because every single seller you call will say, no, I want to sell. Oh, no kidding. Everyone does. 99% of the people, that's our script. 99% of the people I talk to do. But let me tell you why this, because of COVID, because of this, because of that. Other things would be a lease purchase, titles and transfers. So they don't get too antsy with that, but sometimes they're afraid to let go of control because they're losing control, right? They're not losing it, but they're in partnership with you. On the owner financing deal, there's absolutely fear of giving up the deed with no money down. We don't put money down. So if they're comfortable with the investor and they're getting top price, they're usually okay. But that would be an objection. Hey, I'm not getting money down. They might run. Those are 3 major ones for sure.
Okay.
What if they charge? They'll always say, "What if you charge my house?" Well, that's not your concern. That's my concern. I control your house. If my buyer does whatever they do, it's me. That's my headache.
Yeah.
So we can handle them all. It's just that those are some of the common ones.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that. And when would you pivot to more of a seller financed deal or a subject to deal? When do they kind of come into the mix?
Yeah, awesome question. Because there's a bunch of nuances here. There's so many deals after the deals, right? So we've just talked about a lease purchase, but there's a couple pivots to go to your question and then some. So on a sandwich lease deal, I'm working with you. You just met me. A year goes by. I've made your payments for a year. Mm-hmm. You're super comfortable right about now because you might have been needing debt relief or whatever. So now we have a different relationship than we did the day you met me. Now you go like, oh, they're for real. Okay, they made my payment. So now I'm going to talk to you about a sub 2. I'm going to talk to you about taking the deed now. Mm-hmm. I might give you some incentive, but I'm going to talk to you about, I want to make this as long-term deal as I can. Now, so on the buy side, all it determines is there debt? It'd be a sub 2. Is there no debt? It'd be an owner financing.
Okay.
That's all we care. Those are the 2 criteria for us.
Okay, that makes sense.
As far as the buyer side, I'll give you an exact deal. We did a sandwich lease on a house at Cape Cod, another cool area near us. And it started as a sandwich lease, and then it transferred to a sub 2. So we said to our buyer who was in the home, they thought they had to go for a loan within like 29 months. It was their term. We got a statement that said they'll be mortgage ready by this date, so we gave them that date. Now we go to them and say, hey, good news. You don't ever have to go to a bank. They're ecstatic because that's a process, right, for anyone, never mind a new buyer.
Yeah.
And those, what's the criteria? The criteria is once you get your deposit, they only had 10% in at the time. Once you increase your deposit, and you can take your time. I don't care if you take 5 years or 2 years or 2 months. When you get your deposit up to 10%, or we might use 20% in that deal, 20% because I already had 10. We're comfortable then owner financing you. Mm. So now we have a deal that went from a sandwich lease of 3 years to a 20 or 30 year deal unless they decide to cash us out. Or why would they? Why would they go conventional when they can stay with us and never deal with the bank? You can tell I love banks, right?
Yeah, it's just easy. I mean, if I can avoid putting together the paperwork to work with the bank, I will, right?
Yeah, and the mental agony that they put you through.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, I've been through a lot of that in the last 3 months. It's terrible.
Yeah, no good. Don't do that.
Yeah. No, I love that. This has been super helpful. So if any other tips is somebody's going into this kind of a model lease purchase, any other tips that or maybe some hey, watch out for this kind of a thing, and then we'll move on to some other stuff.
You hit a big one at the beginning. The watch out for would be please hook up. I'm not so naive to think it's only us. So hook up with someone that, and I'll give you a formula for it, but hook up with someone that has gone through enough storms and cycles, please, because you're just going to be kicking yourself. That's one. Yeah. And you hit that at the beginning. Secondly, here's kind of a formula, 3-step formula. And this is, I don't care if you're going to open a manufacturing business, a popcorn stand, or real estate. Do this. First, look for a niche. If it's this niche, great, that you like. The internet, there's so much free. We're big on free. We have 100 and something deals posted for free on YouTube. Go watch them. If that gets you excited, good. Second step is find someone who has weathered the storms, but that you can relate to, right? We're from New England. We move fast. We're about getting results. That might not fit some people. Okay, that's fine. So find someone, number two, that you can fit with value-wise, morally, ethically, family-wise, whatever. Once you do those two, okay, fine. This is the hard part. The third is put the blinders on. Doesn't matter what niche your business for 36 months. It doesn't mean it'll take you that long to do a deal. We work hard on shortening our time to first deal with people. But if you come into the deal with that mindset, I'm going to stay at this for 3 years no matter what, you'll have huge success because I'll get you there much more quickly and you won't be ready to quit when the first deal has a curveball thrown at you.
Yeah. You know, I would echo that. I was resistant to using a mentor or a coach initially. I'm a tough guy. I want to do it myself, and I feel like I can do it myself. But the mistakes that I made early on, I know could have been avoided by having somebody just not doing it for me, but just peering over my shoulder and checking my math kind of a thing,
Yeah.
And I know that I would have moved a lot faster. My launch rate would have been a lot quicker. Because it took me, once I started to use mentors and coaches, I mean, I eliminated like 6 months worth of research as I started to pick a new market outside of my market. I live in northern Utah, and it wasn't fitting what I want to do as far as price range. It's too much capital. So I started looking at the Midwest and things like that. And quick phone call, paid $99 for an hour on the phone with this guy. And I eliminated like maybe not 6 months, maybe 3 months, but hours and hours of like, okay, where are the jobs at? Like, and I'm just like, but the next day I'm like, okay, here's my market. I've checked all the boxes. I can start looking at deals. So rather than just tons of times of researching, I instantly had what I needed to know. And the next day I'm looking at deals and sending them to an agent. Like that's, so it can expedite the process. Now, I'm not saying it's ever a get rich quick scheme, but it can help you move faster and more sure of yourself. So I'm definitely on for the coaching and the mentor thing. I wish I would have started that earlier on in my career for sure.
I don't know too many people who've done deals that don't eventually say that. Everybody says they want to bang their head. They wish they did it earlier. But look, if you knew, if your self-confidence was, all right, Justin told me this, I trust it. I'm going to go from point A to B. It's set certain. I just don't know how long it's going to take me. You would do it. You'd find a way. If it was $100 or $100,000, you'd find a way to get those resources. You'd get a partner. You'd borrow whatever, because you knew that it was an end result that was set certain. That's it. It's just a confidence factor.
Yeah.
There's proof of success everywhere.
Yeah, and another huge thing is that I got from the coach, the mentors, was this accountability. Because oftentimes a new investor it doesn't have the network, or is he often in the right room with the right people to hold him accountable. For example, maybe they got a 9-to-5 job, they're sick of that, they want to move into real estate, they want to replace their income with some real estate investing. They don't know who's in the business. They don't have that person to hold them accountable. Who's going to hold them accountable? Like, not their wife. Their wife's probably telling them, hey, that sounds risky. Let's not do that. You know what I mean? So like just having somebody that's like we can do this. And hey, by the way, we talked last week and these were our goals. Did you get there?
Yeah.
Over the last 6 months, that has blown my growth up. Just having a weekly call where I'm like, hey, I know that he's going to ask me if I did what I was supposed to do. And that just expedited it. Because oftentimes we're not, sometimes it's easy to just say, hey, yeah, well, I'm not going to do that. I'll do that next week, And if you just have a coach, a program, somebody to talk to and hold you accountable, that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge in any biz. I couldn't agree more. We have a Slack community, Justin, where we all hang out as part of what they get. And they have nightly postings. They on the side will have hold each other accountable. We do as the program, but they an additional add accountability partners is pretty cool.
I love that. One more question that I just thought of, and then we'll move on to some other questions. But it seems like this lease purchase option can work in almost any market. I mean, it doesn't seem, because like I had to go to a certain market where there were lots of houses in a certain price range, lots of distressed properties, and a little bit less competition. It seems like it doesn't really matter price point or what the market is, because you're going to pay or at least contract the market value. Like, tell me that. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, not much discussion. You're dead on. It doesn't matter what market, it doesn't matter what price range. Does it get a little tougher and would probably slow your cash flow down, but be bigger hits on the high end, like over 2 million? Yeah. But anything under 2 million, you're going to, and certainly under $1 million, you're going to have an easy time at as far as selling them and moving these. When I say under $1 million, DC, the gentleman DC has done, 20 something deals. He's up around, but that's a norm there. So just stick to the median. You can do it in any market, and you can do it in any trending market, up, down, flat.
That's a good point, because I mean, obviously we never know the future. Next year could be a little wild. Who knows, right? I'm not going to ask you to make a prediction, because that's exactly what it is.
No one can. So it doesn't matter.
It's a guess. But I love that, because part of the reason that I am investing in the Midwest, so I live in Utah, I'm investing in Ohio, right? It's a whole nother level of sometimes complexity. I've got a pretty good system and I can do it. But the reason that I left my market was I'm like, well, why would I stay here and buy a distressed property for $125K or $150 when I can go out there and make my capital go way farther at buying $45,000 homes, right?
Right.
But now I'm like, well, I can keep that going out there, but I can find some lease purchase options right here in my backyard, because I know they're here. That you said kind of the middle of the market, right? The medium price range. I can go find those deals and have some deals right here in my backyard. So I like that. A lot of people, I hear this advice all the time, like, hey, pick like a thing that you do, pick a method and just stick to it, stay focused, don't get distracted by shiny objects. But I often wonder, like, is there an argument for having this, the lease purchase option, the seller financing, and there's several other ones that we haven't even talked about, but have that in your tool belt, right? To have some, just in case if I'm running along doing burrs and I'm like, oh, hey, this one doesn't need any rehab, I could probably do a lease purchase option. I hear a lot of people recommend, no, just stay in your lane. Like, what do you say to that?
I do a little of both. Here's why. So I've been out for 31 years, so I got to think, okay, if I'm brand new, what would I do? Because I have most of those niches. The thought is master at least one, because you've got to get yourself cash flow positive. And I know most people would say, no, I don't need this, but then you also need to build your mental confidence up. And you're not going to do it until you do a couple deals. It's the complete opposite. Once you do a couple deals, your confidence, your demeanor on the phone after your first deal is different than it was the day before you did that deal. And so you've got to get some success under your belt and then parlay that. And then do you want to look at adding complementary niches, like does Airbnb work for some of our properties with our students? Absolutely. We've got friends that we have had on a podcast. We do deals together. So and vice versa. So yes, as long as you've got a baseline first. And the reason I caution it, and I say it that cautiously, is when you say stay in your lane, the lane is pretty wide on these terms deals. It really is. My book gives you 3 different methods, and within those 3, man, there's like, you can do 6 or 8, 10 deals differently. So you can suck in a lot of things. is a shiny object once you're in that lane or your lane, even with the BRRRR method, is a shiny object to go out and buy mobile homes or that's a shiny object. Mm-hmm. Self-storage is a phenomenal market. Is it a shiny object if you're over here? Yeah, it's a shiny object. So that's what I mean by if I say it, I mean it that drastic, not just within the niche.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I like I think the mentality around that, it should be very particular and very one focus on the first few deals. You'll never go anywhere if you're like, hey, well, I'm going to try and wholesale flip, lease purchase, and BRRRR. Just depends on what deal comes to me first. Like I don't think that's going to work. But as you do deals and as you grow, you can start adding some tools to your tool belt as far as options on depending on what fits the property. I like that. Right. You can, learn about other things, but if you're on your day-to-day operations of the business, I think you've got to stay focused kind of in your expertise, but always be aware of what else can be out there. I like that.
Yeah, you good. You start parlaying profits at $7,500 for the 3 paydays. And do that for a few years. Go have fun. Reinvest it, but get the base.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect. So and let's talk about, keeping in mind, we kind of talked some of the obstacles that investors look at. What are some of the mindset things that you see in young investors that are learning the ropes and kind of learning things? What are some of the mindset things that keep people from getting deals done and succeeding?
All right, this is a 3-hour answer, but we'll do it in a few seconds. Yeah. This is by far, it's probably going to surprise people, but the mental side of this, any business, but let's talk real estate, is by far the biggest obstacle. Example, and then I'll go back to your question. Example, we have a base course. They all take the same course. Then why do some people do a deal in 32 days, 72 most recently, 48, and some people just got their first deal after the first full year in business with us? Why? What gives besides personal stuff? Mm-hmm. Most of it's the mental stuff, unless they set the goal to go slow. Most people don't. So what gets in the way? First is mismanaged expectations. That's a mental thing. That's all the junk you watch on the internet late night that tells you you're going to get rich tomorrow in real estate, and it's just not going to happen. You can get rich over time, but not tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's one. Second one is self-doubt. That's a biggie. Won't work in my market, won't work for me. It's good for Justin, but yeah, I can't do that, or it won't. Mm-hmm. That's huge. And people say, no, that's me. No, it's a lot of us. And so a lot of these things you talked about earlier patch a lot of this. Mm-hmm. The accountability, the success leaves clues, the mentors that have been through, that all helps in this, because I've been through most curveballs you can throw at mm-hmm. this stuff, and mentally too. So because of that, Justin, we bring in we'll as a team go out, myself, my son-in-law, my son, we'll hire coaches constantly, every quarter, every half year, every year. And then if we like them, we will bring them to the community. We will offer their service to the community, because that's just an integral part of what we're doing. We figured that out for a year or two. This is big. We got to put this into the training.
Yeah, that's huge. So when you see somebody that's succeeding in real estate or in whatever endeavor, what's the thing that you see in their their mindset or their characteristic? What's something very common that separates them from others?
I don't think I've had one person on my podcast, and we're up almost to 250 episodes, not one, that told me when I asked the question similar to your question about morning routine, that said to me, yeah, I don't have one. That doesn't exist. I don't need that. Not one. And then take it a step further. David Nurse was on my show recently, and he's going to speak at our next event. He trains high performance trainer for NBA players. That's the highest mental game there is. These are kids coming out of, right? He adds to that. He was stressing to me the importance of ending the night and then having the good morning routine, because if you end your night shitty, then you're going to have a tough time starting that morning routine. So it's like a double whammy. Mm-hmm. Ending it properly, quick routine, could take seconds or minutes, and then starting it properly. But the morning routine, I've always asked guests about, and they go, and they outline it. So I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I've been a believer in the morning routine for a long time, and I've noticed that the missing piece for me is the wrap up at the end of each day. That is actually almost as valuable. Going to bed in the right mindset with the right focus, feeling good about the day, identifying your wins for the day, whatever it is. That's one thing that I need to nail down. I've been doing the morning thing for a couple of years now, but I don't wrap it up very good at the end of the day. But that's huge. I have seen that as a pretty consistent pattern across the people that I meet and successful people. That's awesome.
Big time.
So
Set the brain up.
Maybe on that topic, give us an example of what your morning routine is like.
Yeah, pretty standard now, and it's been tweaked. I told one of my highest, we call them high six associates, one of the higher level guys, I said, look, this takes time. Don't think that you did this. He did it 13 days in a row. He's ecstatic. I said, that's great, but don't be afraid to tweak it and adjust it. So mine would be first thing in the morning is a breathing app. And while I'm breathing, I'm either going to move to a workout, or if it's an off day like today, I'm going to move to just some yoga stretches.
Yeah.
So it's one or the other. It's breathing to yoga or breathing to a workout. After that, I'm going to do meditation.
Yeah.
Guided app. I'm not saying sit for an hour. I just don't. That's not my deal. But I can do a 10-minute guided or a 15-minute guided. Those 3 or 4 things. And then a quick app is a quick app that has a focus or a nap and all these things on it. I have a focus for 5 minutes on just some visualizing. 5 minutes.
I love it. That's perfect. Yeah, and I love that you mentioned that it can change, and it probably should change. Sometimes I'll take a week and say, hey, this week I'm gonna maybe I'm trying to finish a book that I'm reading or a new thing that I'm trying to learn. I'll say, all right, well, I'm gonna get this into my morning routine and just focus on that, and then I'll shift to say, all right, now this is my focus, maybe learning to meditate or whatever it is, right? So I think it'll evolve and change as your needs evolve and change, and the things that you're trying to master or overcome kind of adjust. So that's great.
And you want to feel that, like, you'll know if you get from one and go, it feels like a grind, and you tweak it. Like maybe you change meditation and breathing. Maybe you switch the order. A guy asked me this morning, he's the guy who was asking me about his routine. Well, what order is important? I said, whatever you feel like you're in flow. Like, does that work for you? Then stick with it. Like, there's no wrong answer here.
Yeah, no, I love that. So talk to us a little bit. Just got a couple of questions left here.
Sure.
What is your why? Like, what's pushing you now? What gets you out of bed in the morning, and what's super motivating to you right now?
A couple of different levels. One has always been to reach. Now, this is going to be different for everyone, but hit the quote unquote success level. For me, success is about making the money, not making the money for money's sake, making the money to do things money can't buy.
Yeah.
So for my wife and I, it's creating experiences with the family. We have 2 grandkids now. It's creating those experiences, but you can't do that without the money. So it's making the money to do the things money can't buy.
Yeah.
And number 2 is to create that legacy, the long-term legacy with now the family and the business.
Yeah, I love that.
And as long as, Justin, as long as the deals continue to be, real estate deals are never the same. Not one sandwich lease is the same, not one owner financing. So as long as they continue to be exciting and intriguing and challenging, I'll be still doing them. Yeah,
that's a good point. I mean, every deal has got its own things. It's got its own nuances and challenges. So it's fun. Yeah, no, that does keep it. It's different than sometimes a 9 to 5 where it's the same thing every day. It definitely has its different obstacles. Good. And so one question I always like to ask, because I'm always curious, looking for ideas and things. What is something that you do to give back and to bless the lives of others around you?
Yeah, I agree 100% on that too. So we're on the same wavelength. Son Nick had an accident in 2003, snowboard. He was in a coma for a month. He, long story short, went through Franciscan Children's Hospital in Boston, Brighton, Mass. So we give a piece of every single transaction and new person that comes into the company. It's just part of the, we run on profits first. And one of the buckets, we send out checks to them every single transaction.
That's awesome. I love that. What is your favorite business book that's kind of had the most impact? And then maybe in addition to that, give us a couple of other recommendations for new investors that are trying to get started.
Yeah, to hone in on investors, of course, I'm biased if they like our niche, but So to be more broad, business book wise, it depends on where I am mentally every year. I'm working on something different, but things that stand out more general will be Ray Dalio's Principles. Yeah, I think that's amazing. Shoe Dog it was amazing. These are, total lesson books. And then I love the 2 more, The Hard Things About the Hard Things. He's blunt. It's our style. Here's what you're going to hit in business, not maybe, and here's how I dealt with it. He just lays it out. And the last one would be, I know it's an older one, but the story that the movie, the McDonald's movie that was made, Behind the Arches or whatever they call it, the book is amazing because the book is a real estate book, in my opinion. It talks about struggle, it talks about building the business, talks about building the real estate empire that he did. That's a cool book for anyone, but certainly for real estate people.
I love that. And we'll definitely have links to your books in here. I am halfway, 3/4 of the way through Real Estate on Your Terms, which I'm loving so far.
I'm looking at the cover. I got to make sure, and I will do that for you, that the staff mails you that the newly revised came out in November. So you probably just got in before that as far as us shipping that out to you. I will get you a new one.
I think I did. But this one's signed, so I'm super stoked about that.
I will sign the next one.
and you mentioned Shoe Dog, which I haven't heard that one mentioned before. And one thing I loved about that book, and I just throw this in here because I think it's valuable. Yeah. One thing I loved about that, so this is the story of Nike, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that was super helpful for me is hearing the story of Phil Knight, right? Is that his name?
Yep.
Remember? Of the chaos and like the constant like struggle and the fact that it wasn't perfect. Like nothing was ever perfect.
Right.
And
I agree.
It made me feel better about my little business and the fact that sometimes not all the dots line up and there's always struggle. And I feel like sometimes I'm making it up as I go. And partly because I'm going into new territory every day, I'm progressing and that was just a good, like, it's okay to struggle a little bit because it was a constant battle for him to get that company to where it went. And I just love that book. I just throw that little note in there. That was a great read for me for sure.
Ray's actually the one that says in his book, and I don't know what the exact terms are, but he says not only will it happen, but like welcome it. So when it comes, your mental thing is different. Your mental thing is, oh great, now how can I tweak it and get better?
Yeah. That's an important principle to me. We often, and we were supposed to end, but I got to talk about this. You often hear about these gurus on social media saying, hey, take my course. And they don't say it this way, but this is what they're promising. Then live a life without resistance and struggle, right? That's kind of what they're selling. And I'm like, we got to be super careful with that. If we ever obtain a life without resistance and struggle, we have stopped progressing.
That's actually a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why there's a chapter you might not have gotten to, but there's a whole chapter in my book called "What Can Go Wrong" for that reason right there.
That's good. That's good. And I want people to feel like your goal when you venture into real estate should not be creating an easy life. It should just be creating a life with more freedom of time and money and options because you have that maybe financial stability, the financial wherewithal to, like you said, create memories for your family, bless the lives of those around us. Sometimes it takes money to help people. Yes, sometimes you can just give your time, but sometimes there's a cost to that. So I think we got to be super careful what we desire, and what we envision with, hey, if I just go invest in real estate, one day I'll sit on the beach and not have any struggles in my life. I'm like, that's a dangerous place to be, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, awesome, Chris. This has been awesome. I appreciate it. If people want to learn more about your courses, your books, where should we send them?
Two things. They can get a free copy of the revised edition that's behind you there. I'll send them to free SREC. So smart, it stands for Smart Real Estate Coach. Free SREC book.com. And then we had a decent chat. I'd love to, if someone wants to go deeper into any of these items, I'll throw out a free strategy call, 15 or so minutes. It'll be myself, my son-in-law, Zach, or our strategy expert, Brian. It's one of us. You're going to get, one of us on the phone. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/action. Real simple. We'll give you a free call. I don't hit that on every show, but we had a nice long chat and there's a lot of good meat in there. I can dive deeper for them if they want.
I love that. Thank you very much for those offers, man. That's super great.
All good, yeah.
Again, thanks for your time. Good luck out there. Any final thoughts that you want to share with the listener before we sign off?
No, that 3-step formula does it. Just know that you can. I don't know when this is going to air, but I don't care if it's the next quarter or next year you're thinking about, but you can do it. Just know that you can and get around someone that will help you do that.
I appreciate that, man. Chris Prefontaine, thank you very much. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Money Maven Project podcast. A true maven shares knowledge with others, so be sure to share this podcast and leave a review. Thanks so much, and until next time, live life with intention.